But please give Rebecca Dainton a warm welcome.
Thank you. So just want to start off by saying amazing talk, really, really relevant for me at the moment. Outcomes over outputs, like I've got 2 little kids and at the moment I am experimenting with compressing my hours. This presentation I actually did during my kids' gymnastics class that was an hour and a half on a Friday evening. So yeah, it works, you know. So yeah, really inspiring, and some of the stats I was like, wow. So really, really good talk. All right, so hi everyone, I'm Rebecca. And yeah, I'm going to talk to you about my journey from Scrum Master into Agile Coaching. But before I get going on that topic, just wanted to really pay tribute to Ada Lovelace. So I know Ada Lovelace Day is coming up. And yeah, what an inspirational woman. So yeah, she wrote the first algorithm designed for a machine. So pretty astounding that she did that, you know, over 2 centuries ago. And yeah, she was a woman. Awesome. You know, she continues to be an inspiration to women, and I'm sure men as well, within STEM all over the world. And she was actually a really early visionary for artificial intelligence, so AI, which, as we know now, is, you know, absolutely huge, and really we are in the era of AI. And she was one of the first people to actually say, you know, computers are not just going to be number crunchers, they're going to be doing so much more than that centuries ago. So how right was she? So I asked myself the question, if Ada Lovelace was around today, what would she think of ChatGPT? So I thought, well, let's start with a couple of jokes. So I asked ChatGPT, come on, tell us some jokes around Ada Lovelace and tech. Okay. Why was Ada Lovelace great at writing algorithms? Any guesses? Because she had a bite of genius long before computers even existed. Okay. ChatGPT, are you good at telling jokes? Let's see, next one. Why did Ada Lovelace break up with the calculator? They get better. They get better. Oh, it's good, Steve, but it's not the one I'm looking for. Yeah. Because she needed someone with more complex functions. So, safe to say, I think if Ada was around today, she probably wouldn't be that impressed with ChatGPT and the ability of telling jokes. I think humans are much better at that. But she would be absolutely amazed, obviously, at AI, what it's doing for humankind and where we are with it at the moment. So just wanted to take a couple of slides, really, to pay tribute, 2 centuries on, what a remarkable woman and still inspiring people today. All right, so on to me. Where do I work and what do I do? So, yes, as Roy said, I work for Flutter. So this is the umbrella company. And within Flutter, we've got many, many brands. It's really, really big. So I actually work for PokerStars, part of the international division. You might have heard some of the UK and I brands like Skybet, Paddy Power, Tombola, probably the ones you've heard of more over here in the UK. So we are the global leader in online sports, gaming and betting. And we're massive. So, over 23,000 employees. Like I said, we're international. We've got 12.3 million average monthly players, over 75 global offices and over 1,000 retail sites as well. So we're really, really big, but I don't want to just stand here and brag about how big we are. There's a reason I'm kind of, bigging this up. So that means there's room for me. Because there's shitloads of complexity, like absolutely tons. We've got all these different brands, acquiring new ones all the time, different systems, complex adaptive systems trying to talk to each other. So loads of complexity. So that's where I come in as an Agile Coach. So luckily there's lots of work for me, which is good. So that's what I do. I'm an Agile Coach and I work for Flutter. So, quick game of Spot the Difference then, everybody. Who can spot me 3 differences? Just feel free to shout them out. Go for it, yeah? Turtle, yeah, facing the wrong way. Yeah, yeah. And coral, yes, well done. So I think we can say Agile Yorkshire. We're good at Spot the Difference, well done. Definitely nice. Impressive. Next one. Right, what's the difference? Scrum Master versus Agile Coach. Loaded, I love a loaded topic. So Any shout outs? Anyone want to give their opinions?
The capital A.
Yeah, nice.
£500 a day?
Yeah, classic. Love it, classic. Any others on that one?
So I would say Scrum Mastering is a bit more about delivery than coaching.
Okay. Yeah. Any more?
Coach, I would venture, is more framework agnostic.
Okay, yeah. Like that one. Yeah.
Going to say
Gonna say similar.
There is an Agile Coach, just needs a special tool.
Yeah, I like that. Scrum Master is an Agile Coach as well. And is there a difference? Go back to the Scrum framework. Actually, the Scrum Master is the Agile Coach. In some organisations, you will have Scrum Masters who are very empowered to work at org level. Scrum Guide, we work with the org, don't we, the team, the Scrum Masters. And other organisations have created more of a hierarchy. Okay, so the point I was kind of trying to get across here is I was moving from Scrum Master to Agile Coach, and I didn't really know what that was going to look like. We've had lots of different answers, haven't we, in the room? So what did actually that mean for me? And I didn't know. I didn't know what I was getting into. So this was my situation just over a year ago now. I'd just finished a year of maternity leave. This is my little lad here, Theo. He's one there. He's 2 now. And an Agile Coach opportunity came up at PokerStars. It's something I'd dabbled with at a previous organisation, and I really wanted to get into at Flutter, so it's something, on my progression plan, something I was wanting to do. So I took the opportunity while I was on mat leave and I applied. And I was successful in the role, so I was really happy. I'd done my year of mat leave, going back to something I could really get my teeth into, happy days. So what was the reality? Help. All right, so this was the reality. I got the role. I was told I'd be working with a large tribe and I'd be working with 13 teams. The teams didn't have a Scrum Master, at team level as an official role. The teams would have what we call acting Scrum Masters. So these were, back-end engineers, front-end engineers, QAs, who would also do the Scrum Master role alongside their role. Many of the teams had not been together long, so we're in the forming stage as well. To add to that, they were in the process of a big transfer, so we're moving from a contractor-based sort of teams into permanent staff. And they were in the middle of a large knowledge transfer from Toronto over to Europe. So and my job was, there you go, Rebecca, I need you to help them become more effective Scrum teams. So you can imagine kind of coming back from mat leave, what my thoughts were there. So let's move on to this. What were my initial thoughts then? And we're going to have a little bit of a quiz. So let's have a look. What do you think my reactions were? So A, did I look for evidence that backed up my bias that all Scrum teams, they need a Scrum Master at team level, right? I'm the Agile Coach. I need someone to be coaching. We should have that role at team level. Did I do this? Did I look into trusted bodies of knowledge for proof that actually Agile Coaches, we don't work with that many teams? Like Adventures with Agile, they quote 1 to 8 teams as a sensible amount, so 13, crazy. Did I work with leadership and create a proposal to hire me some Scrum Masters, like get me Scrum Masters now at a ratio of 1 to 2 teams? Did I think, insert word of choice? Or did I do E, all of the above? So, hands up for A. Okay, B, C, D, E. Yes, absolutely, yeah. So I did all of these things. It was like, panic mode. I did everything on there. So that didn't help. So what did I do next? So I took a breath and I asked myself the question, how can I be an effective Agile Coach with so many teams and only one of me? So how could I be this effective Agile Coach, 13 teams, one of me, how could I get to them all and, help? So I came to the realisation that I couldn't observe every Scrum event. So, 13 teams, 5 Scrum events, it was just not going to happen. Logistically, it couldn't happen. Even if I wanted to, for productivity and context switching, that was just going to be, a nightmare for my brain and productivity in general. So that was a big no. And I actually had a huge realisation that I wasn't going to be in the team anymore. And this was a big shock. So as a Scrum Master, I was really part of those teams. You know, I was in the sessions, at the daily scrums, working with them day in, day out. I now had 13 teams. I couldn't be in the team anymore. And that was a big realisation for me moving into that Agile coaching role. So I came to the conclusion I was going to need some help. And that help needed to be data. So I started to look into some data. And where would any Scrum Master go for some data? They'd go to Jira. For the good old velocity chart in Jira. Now, if you don't like velocity and story points, let's look at this as throughput. However you want to look at it, story points, throughput is fine. What we're going to do is I think we're going to try breaking into, I don't know, maybe 3-4 groups we can self-organise because we're good at that as Agilists. I'd just like people to have a chat, put on your Agile Coach, Engineering Manager, Scrum Master hats, and imagine you've been told you've got 13 teams to work with, you've jumped into Jira, and these are the kind of trends you're seeing, all right? So roughly, you know, the teams are looking like this. So here we've got your committed work, which is grey, you've got completed work, which is your green, and you've got your average velocity across there, across that line as well. So just have a chat in some groups. You know, what initial thoughts would you have? Any ideas on what you'd talk to the teams about? Anything, and we'll just get maybe a few opinions back from the groups.
The teams across left to right, so each pair is a team.
So this is just, sorry, I'll make this clear. So this is just one team. Yeah, one team, and we're looking at 7 sprints for that team. Yeah, but if you imagine all the teams did look very similar to this, okay? But this is just a snapshot from one team over a quarter. Okay. So do you want to jump into groups? Feel free to stand, move around a little bit, and I'll grab you back in a few minutes. So yeah, overhearing some interesting conversations. You know, a lot of people saying this is really common. You know, we're overcommitting. So yeah, so let's have a look. So yes, we've got a really volatile trend, haven't we here? So some weeks we're delivering, I don't know, 20 points or 20 things through the system, and then yeah, it's jumping right up. So not a very predictable team at all, looking at this data. Definitely a few people calling this one out. Massively overcommitting, so you know, committing to 80 story points here, delivering 20, 25, and this is a trend you can see, isn't it, for this team, and this is what the whole tribe was like essentially. And yeah, the average here, which might be an all right average, who knows, like nearly 20 story points, but again, why are we committing to 80 story points if our average is around 20?
Sorry if I interrupt, but we had a question and I would like to have an answer. So one of the team of the group mentioned why no one realized that there was overcommitment and under-delivering. So no one of the team was looking at this number.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's no one looking at it. The team maybe not educated in terms of these, you know, charts and where to go. They were really not very mature teams when I started working with them, so I'd say that's probably the story. I will just say, if we can hold questions till the end, that's my fault for not mentioning it at the beginning though. But no, thank you. So I would say, yeah, it was, they weren't educated, they didn't know where to look. So there's a massive piece around that which we'll go into. Okay, so, yes. Next sort of data that I looked into, again, sticking with basic data for now, the trusted control charts in Jira. So yeah, a few things that I was looking at sort of initially. You can see here, average build cycle time was almost a month. So we wanted to work in Scrum. We decided to do 2-week iterations. So clearly some work to do there. We had lots of these outliers as well. This one, a QA only task, which is probably a conversation in itself, but 13 weeks in QA, this one. So yeah, really, really long time. And there were lots of instances like this. Rolling average 79.8 days and standard deviation of 104 days. So these were the kind of things I was seeing just initially looking into these teams in Jira, just to get a flavour. So I'd got the basic data, I'd had a look in Jira, and yeah, I revisited my question and arrived at a second answer. So I asked myself the same question, right? I'd seen the data, the simple data in Jira. How can I be an effective Agile coach with so many teams and only one of me? So data, yes, was going to play a really important part. but it wasn't enough. So, looking at the charts we just looked at, you could draw so many conclusions just looking at that. And it could be a number of different things. So it needed to be data, then the conversations with the teams in order to get the context basically, and then enable that coaching and those coaching conversations. So, don't just go in and be like, your velocities, this, that, and we need to work on build cycle time. It's having those conversations like, do you know this chart exists? Do you know what's going on? And figuring out that and working with the teams. So what did I actually do? All right, so I started to jump into some of these stances. So this is the Agile Coaching Competency Framework, which I know a lot of people will be familiar with, or the X-Wing model. I really leapt into teaching, mentoring, the Agile Lean practitioner, so really living the values of Agile, professional coaching, so talking a lot with leadership in terms of outcomes and what do they want to see for the tribe, what was important to them, and then a lot of facilitating as well. So what did that look like? So I did observe Scrum events, but like I said, I couldn't get to them all. There was 13 teams, so I really had to prioritise where I could add the most value. So looking at some of the data, understanding which teams needed me the most and which Scrum events to go and observe. So I did that, and that's where I asked powerful questions and got that context in some of these Scrum events. And I also set up one-to-ones with the acting Scrum Masters. So like I said, these were back-end, front-end engineers, these kind of people, but we got our one-to-ones in and we started to work on mentoring and coaching and, this is what we live and breathe as a Scrum Master, this is the role you're going to play. All those conversations started to happen. Teaching on a wider scale, so I don't like the word efficient, but I feel like it was a case of efficiency here. I looked at patterns and we did find patterns at tribe level, and that's when I started to do teaching on a wider scale. Specifically looking at sprint planning, so you could see from the velocity charts there was a big issue across the board with stop starting and start finishing. So we're starting stuff, bringing more in, and just never actually getting it to done. So we did some large-scale training on that. I ran sessions on metrics with the acting Scrum Masters, so talking about things like, do you know that there's a cycle time chart in there? Do you know what a control chart does in Jira? Do you know how what you're doing can affect that and how we want to measure that as teams? Looking at data quality as well with the teams. And things like cycle time and just going through those basics with the acting Scrum Masters. We set up a tribe-wide community of practice as well. So we got the product owners, the acting Scrum Masters, engineering managers all together from that tribe and started to share knowledge. And that was, prioritised on what do you want to hear about, what do we want to teach. So it was always, a pull of what people wanted to hear about from the community of practice rather than me pushing. And we looked at other things like, work in progress, and focus as well, and generally, the more WIP we have, the less focus we have. And slicing work as well to reduce our build cycle time. So these were some of the key topics that I felt as an Agile coach working with a big tribe, I could really, condense into some key training sessions. Okay, so more data and the power of dashboards. So we'd got that basic data, I'd been looking in Jira, having some really good conversations and set up some key things like one-to-ones, large-scale training. And we could see improvements. The data was looking good. I could definitely see some improvements over time. But I knew I really wanted to get the foundations right. So rather than starting to look at more systemic stuff, I wanted to get those teams working really nicely at that foundational level. And I wanted the Scrum Masters essentially to own their own data and metrics. So rather than me going to them now and saying, this is your control chart, this is your build cycle time, what can we do to reduce that? Let's work together to get there. I wanted them to be owning that and driving that within the teams. So that's something that we worked on massively. And that's where we use the power of Jira dashboards. Jira gets a bad rep. There's so many things I hate about Jira, believe me. But dashboards, we've had some success with dashboards actually. I don't know, does anyone use dashboards, rich filters and things in Jira? Yeah? Cool. So we found it really nice actually, and we've got the Scrum Masters owning their own dashboards. We've got leadership looking at the right sort of metrics in there as well. It's working nicely for us. So, a pretty picture of our dashboard there. Let me jump on to how this has helped, I guess. So, yeah, so going from the basic data you can get from Jira, we started to build our own dashboards then to look into specific data that we wanted that were, I guess, problematic things for the tribe, so we could focus in on the issues we had, and then I could work with them and coach on specific things. So for example, this one, we're looking at backlog health. So we've set this widget up, so we've got the teams there. You can see the total backlog items. We've got the ready backlog depth. So out of the backlog, the total backlog, what's actually ready to go. So in terms of what's got your acceptance criteria there, story points estimated, basically ready for the devs to bring into sprint by percentage. And then we've got the average weekly throughput as well of our teams. So you can see here how, I'm not in the teams anymore, so I need this kind of like large scale data to look at. So as a coach, I can look at this and say, right, okay, operations tools, 205 things in your backlog. Do we want 205 things in our backlog? How old are these things? Have they been sat there years? So this is the data, and this is enabling me to have those conversations without being in the team and understanding what they're doing day in, day out. So this was a switch from Scrum Master to Agile Coach for me. It's using the data to then have the conversations. Now I know this team really well. They slice their work super, super thin, so I'm not massively worried. But again, it's having those conversations. Here we've got the payments team. So they've got 11% of their backlog ready. So nine items ready. Their average throughput a week is 8.6. So again, a conversation around, do you know you've only got, basically a week's worth of work ready to go? Like, this is a risk to the business. Like, we could, dry up in terms of work. So having those conversations, right, what's the problem? What's going on there? Is it a case of we need more refinement? And what does that look like? Can we build some more refinement into your plan? Or actually, is it an upstream thing? Like, have we got the product stuff ready to go? Is it working more with the product owner? Is it moving different products and work to that team? So again, the data's there. You can't just draw a conclusion. You need to speak to the team, understand what's going on, and then get that plan in place to implement, the outputs and the outcomes of your coaching, essentially. All right, so this is another widget we've got going on here. So this is looking at our bug and incident count. So again, just a conversation starter, really. So we like to, within the tribe, a threshold we've kind of set is, incidents and bugs less than 20%. Because we want value add basically to our customers. So again, it's that, keeping our eye on this and also getting the teams now to own this. So they've got this, they see it day in, day out, they use it in the retrospectives, right? Okay, incidents 18%. What do we want to do about that? What's the context behind that? I know this team, and it was that they'd been asked to look after a product that someone else had built, and they were getting incidents in from that. But what's behind that? And as part of the retros, do we want to set some actionable, improvements? Do we want to drive that number down over the next quarter, 6 months, for example? So we've got the teams really looking at stuff like this. And obviously me as well in the background as a coach, looking at things like this and going in and kind of saying, look, your bug count's whatever, 25%. And what's behind that? So is it we've got some new devs and it's a code quality thing and we need to do some pair programming? Or is it, like we've said, you're looking after someone else's product and it's buggy? So again, looking at the data, having the conversations, and then going in with the best technique and tools from my toolbox to help them obviously reduce this number. This one, so we are looking at time to production here. So like I've said, we're doing Scrum, so ideally we want this 84% here to jump up to this 2-week window. So this is our confidence level of work hitting production. So at the moment, this team are getting 69% of their work done or to prod within 2 weeks. So we want that to be more like 85% within 2 weeks. So again, great conversation, workshop, all right team, how do we get 84% to 2 weeks? How do we shift the dials that way? And that's just a nice workshop to have with the team, isn't it? Like, come up with the ideas. They're the clever ones, they're going to tell you. But they probably don't know this stuff unless you've got that data in front of them. So again, they own it, present it, make it really visible, transparent, all that good stuff from Agile, and then actionable results, and let's measure it. So how, what goals are we going to set to move this dial over the next, again, 3-6 months? So quite a good one that we like to keep track of, and leadership are really interested in this one as well. So they should be. This one, so we specifically set a filter on this because the tribe that I was working with, or I'm working with, they had a real issue around code reviews. So they could do a certain amount of code reviews internally within the team, but actually there was some code reviews that had to go external to the team or even to the tribe, and we were seeing a real bottleneck there. So, things sat in code review for weeks. So we set this filter up, which basically tells us, has it been in code review for more than 5 days? And it gives us a list. So we can see really nicely, what's hanging around in code review. And this enables us, again, to have those conversations with leadership. So leadership, do you realise that we've got code owners that are not within the teams? And how can we, get those code owners within the teams? Can you help us, empower us to bring that in? How do we train our engineers up so that they own that code or they can work on that code and essentially review it and give them that trust? Presenting the data, like, look how much it's slowing us down, leadership. So really good for having those conversations as well. All right. So hopefully that's just giving you a bit of an insight into some of the data we're using. So the basic stuff in Jira can be really valuable, but then building onto that in Jira dashboards has been awesome. And again, for empowering, as a coach, it's great to get those insights at a holistic level, but also to empower the teams and to have the conversations with leadership as well. But so what? Have we made improvements? So, yes, we have. You'll be pleased to know. So this is the data over the last year of working with the tribe. So when we started off a year ago, we had some teams that, were delivering, it's taken over a month for them to get things out the door. And we've reduced that over time. And you can see now we're down into the 10-day, 2-week sprint. A lot of the teams are actually delivering within 5 days now and testing nice and early within that iteration, which is awesome. And the key thing is it's sustainable as well. So this is 6 months now where we've kept within that sort of Scrum 2-week period. You'll see that we've got this one creeping up again here, and it's annoying really because I wanted the chart to look really perfect, but I thought I'm not going to take it out, because life isn't perfect, is it? But we're absolutely on that. The team know what's going on, and we're looking at driving that down again together. So in terms of improvements over time, it's working. We've got good data showing that. These are the charts now, so much nicer. As an Agile coach looking at a tribe now, you're not as worried. You're looking at that nice, predictable, start to have those conversations, can't we, about when things might be delivered and throughput and all that good stuff. So looking much nicer, and you can see their rolling average of around 4 days, which is quite common now for the teams. So we're getting stuff in, we're getting testing nice and early, and we're getting stuff sort of out within that 10-day window, which is great. Throughput of the last year for the EU teams that I'm working with. So you can see steadily moved upwards. And then you can see as well, the nice thing is we're much more predictable and sustainable. So rather than this volatile, 1 week we're delivering 10 things, next week it's down to 2. We've started to get to that point now where we're predictable, which is what we want. We don't want people working their asses off like all the time, working overtime. We want this predictable pace, happy engineers, but where we can actually say, look, we're going to get you this feature out at X point, which is great. The community of practice as well. So we've had some really good feedback around that. So that's been going about a year now. So 4.5-ish out of 5. People really enjoying that, learning a lot, sharing knowledge. Starting to get to a point now where that's been led more by the tribe and the acting Scrum Masters as well and the product owners, rather than me kind of owning that at the beginning. So that's nice to be able to get to that point now where the tribe's owning that more. So other improvements we're seeing with data. So we've got a lower bug and incident count overall. The biggest one for me is teams are reporting being more focused. So this is for me where I get my buzz as an Agile coach. So I love the metrics, we're reducing cycle time, lead time, less bugs. That's all awesome, and leadership love that stuff too, so they should. But what I love to hear is actually teams feeling happier and more focused. And I spoke to one team who they were hit with a really late regulatory requirement, so it was a big deal, like risk of losing our license. And they were hit with this really late in the game, And I spoke to them afterwards and I was like, how did you handle it? How did they go? And they said, Rebecca, if we were working the old way, we're not sure how we would have got through that work. But because now they've got this like focused, this focused way of working and this new way of working, and they're looking at things like WIP, and managing that and not just bringing in the next emergency thing. And actually, they feel really good, and they said they got on with it, and it didn't feel like this big, regulatory thing. It just felt like work. So that was really nice to hear. Like I've said, they're really owning the metrics at squad level, which is great. They're using the data at the Scrum event, so sprint reviews. They're using the dashboards to talk to stakeholders, to talk about risks, all that stuff that we need to make them really aware of. And they're using it in retros to improve every couple of weeks. So they're bringing up the build cycle time charts, lead time, dashboards, bugs, what we call TSOs, which are incidents, and they're using those in retros to continuously improve, which is awesome. And yes, leadership are engaged. They're actively asking for the right metrics as well, so they're not asking for, who's delivering the most velocity and all that stuff that we know is no useful at all. They're asking like, how are our teams improving? How predictable are we? So the good stuff they're interested in, which is a good sign. Lessons learnt then. So, the key ones. So as a coach working with a tribe, you really lose your day-to-day insights, which is what I found with sorry, I'm doing the mic thing now as well. With such a big tribe, I lost that day-to-day. So that's where data really came in, and it really, really helped me get the insights that I was missing from, being around all the time. But data will not tell you everything, as I discovered. So yes, I can look at the data, get some sort of smells and conclusions, but I need to speak to the team still and really understand the context behind what's going on. Context and conversations are key to helping the squads with specific coaching needs. Patterns will emerge, and that's where it's good to be efficient, I guess, as an Agile coach. So if you see patterns of the whole tribe, get some wider scale training in there and kind of like hit everyone at once with that. And practice what you preach. So focus on the most value and avoid too much context switching, which is a really big one at the beginning for me. I was pretty overwhelmed really with so many teams. And it took me a while to go, no, I need to say no, and I need to focus on where the value is. Even though I talk to my engineers and dev teams all the time about this, less whip, focus more, you're going to be less productive and all that. So actually practicing that and living that as an Agile coach has been really, really helpful. And absolutely essential. Like I couldn't have been in all these different teams and at the same time. All right, so final notes then. So this one, Agile is dead. So Agile is dead apparently. So like I said, I've just been working with this tribe. We're getting to the point now where I'm probably going to be walking away from these teams because they're in a really good place. The director of technology got hold of me a couple of weeks ago and said, Rebecca, can you come and work this team? And they've got a nice build cycle time average of 24 weeks. So nearly 6 months, or 6 months. So Agile is dead apparently. There's so much work for us to do. There's so much support there that teams still need. I know it's not just our organisation. Agile is absolutely not dead. And I think even when we do get to the point where we're looking at these kind of control charts and data and all our teams are delivering within a 2-week sprint, like that's not the end of Agile, is it? A really good coach said to me, if you think of a Premier League football team, you get to the Premier League, so you get to the point where you're delivering within a 2-week iteration. Do you sack your coach? Absolutely not. Like this is when you need a bloody coach the most. This is when competitors are super high and you need that coach to be looking at your niche things with you and kind of having that holistic view. So I think even when we get to a point where I'm not being asked to support things like this, there's so much more for us to do as Agile coaches and Scrum Masters and I guess anyone in the Agile world, isn't it? So thank you very much and happy to take some questions if there are any. Go for it.
So you spoke a lot about like you're not part of the team and you're supporting a whole tribe. But what support have you got around you? So you're an Agile coach. Are you in a pool of Agile coaches and do you have a community of practice? Do you support each other? if you've got a coach, mentor, all of those kind of, how are you supporting? It's brilliant, all the stuff that you've done. You're supporting, I don't know how many people are in those tribes, but who's supporting you?
Yeah, really good question. So yes to a lot of those questions, luckily. I don't think I'd have done it without the support I had. So came back from mat leave and I guess organically, Max became he's a really senior Agile coach. He's been in the game a long time, but he became my mentor and he's been brilliant. Like I've learned absolutely loads from him. So that's been awesome. In terms of community of practices, yeah, we do have an internal community of practice as well, like a Flutter-wide one that Tom Hoyland runs. So that's a great opportunity for me to go and learn more about Agile and that's sort of a wider community of at Flutter level. So outside of, this tribe that I'm working with. And yeah, I am in a pool of Agile coaches as well. So so we support each other there. There's some that are based sort of UK and some over in Toronto actually. But we still have those Zoom calls and kind of support each other. And of course, there's things where we're like, oh, my team's this and, this and leadership of it. And we can always have those conversations. And luckily I work for a supportive team and yeah, it's definitely there. But I think without it, you'd really, really struggle, especially at the beginning. Definitely needed it. So, yeah. Hey.
So how did you deal with maybe resistance to change, or how did you sell the benefits of working in this new way with teams?
Yeah, sure. So I guess a lot of it is experimentation really. So there's, and not pushing change as well. So resistance tends to come if you push. So if you push against any force, you'll get resistance. Whereas if you're inviting the change, and it's a subtle difference, isn't it? Then you tend to get more people onboarded and it's sort of their idea and they're up for it. So a lot of that start with where we are now from kind of lean. So not coming in and going, right, we're doing Scrum and you look at the state of your cycle time, it's right, guys. Do you know where the control chart is? Do you know what your cycle time is? How could we as a team, start to affect that? Should we experiment with slicing work for a few sprints and see what you think? So I think it's a lot about how you sort of pitch what you're going in to do and how you get the teams to essentially make the change themselves. And I think as a coach, that's really important. That is your job really. It's not to go in and say, we're doing this, we're doing that. It's to kind of say, here's the mirror, this is how you guys are doing. Here's some ideas from my toolbox. What do you want to pick? What do you want to experiment with first? And that's the sort of approach I took here with this tribe. And yeah, most teams did really well. You always get your odd team, don't you, that are the nightmare team or whatever. I won't mention any names, but yeah, so that's the approach we took. And yes, I'd say that's how we sort of avoided too much resistance to change.
Kind of on the back of that one, did you find that, because obviously they were acting Scrum Masters, so did you find that anyone was really resistant to that idea once they found out how much that meant for them to do and what it actually meant as work, or was everyone really happy?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we had a mix. I'd say probably half of them were really up for it, and then the others were like, I've got a full-time job to do here. So again, a lot of it was coaching. A lot of it was also me talking back to leadership and saying, you've asked them to do this responsibility, the other work has to slide a bit. So we can't expect them to do a full-time QA job and the Scrum Master stuff as well. So those conversations. There was some resistance. We've had some real surprises though. So some, because I went in a bit sceptical, if I'm honest, thinking this is never going to work. We need trained professional Scrum Masters. And actually I've learnt a lot about, it's worked quite nicely because they are actually a part of the team. And essentially what we always want the Scrum Master to do is walk away, don't we? Whereas that doesn't have to happen now because the QA or the back end or the front end, whoever it is in that team. So where we've had bits of resistance, obviously lots more coaching, lots more mentoring with them, looking at things like how can we delegate as well, because as a Scrum Master, it's not all on you. So that might be me talking to them about some of their challenges and talking about delegation and, all right, who could own this within the team? Things like sharing the Scrum events, it's not all on you as an acting Scrum Master. You are accountable to make sure they're happening. But, we do things like spin the wheel for the daily Scrums and, challenge different team members to run the retros and things like that. So it just depends really. Obviously, lots of different characters, lots of different sort of, some were really up for it, like you say, some resisted it. And I just had to come with a different approach for each person because each person was different really. Does that answer your question? Yeah, cool. All right. Go for it. Yeah. Right.
Oh, I was going to ask you that. So how does it work? How does like from an agile coach perspective, how does the whole succession thing work then at Flutter? Because obviously lots of big teams, but, you know, a decent sized coaching team as well. Where do the new coaches come from?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the new coaches essentially come from demand. So in terms of, I know when I was brought in after mat leave, that was probably the last role that opened up as an agile coach for a while actually. But there was that demand there because we'd had a shift from, we'd brought basically a lot of knowledge over from Toronto and moved it over to Europe. So they needed someone who was Europe based. So luckily that was me. So again, as we sort of, you know, come up with new initiatives or new products, or essentially when we're acquiring new brands as well. So we do I think we're always acquiring new brands. It's crazy how big we're growing. So we might acquire a new brand and they might not work in an agile way at all. So then it's right, okay, we need some agile coaches to go work with this new brand and sort of get them aligned with how we do things at Flutter, what we call the Flutter Edge. So essentially using, the power of our knowledge to kind of expand across the brands. So and then I guess in terms of, you know, that career path, we very much encourage Scrum Masters to move into those agile coaching roles because we know they've got the hands-on experience with the teams as well. So essentially.
Well, and a follow-up question then. So that's interesting you said that Flutter Edge thing. So do you think that approach and that that input from a coaching team and being careful about watching the metrics, do you think that is been viewed as significant value to the brand, commercial value, or is it there's a bunch of hippie people here that kind of look at charts and
Yeah, so I think so I think it does, and I think leadership do a lot around this. So for example, they've just brought in a new director over us that's specifically going to look at practice and rolling out across different brands and things. So I think yes. I think a lot of it does come back to the metrics actually, because it's that thing of proving your value, isn't it, as an agile coach? You shouldn't have to, but you do essentially have to. It's not writing code and creating products. It's not that tangible stuff. So I think anything that we can do as a community of agile coaches where we're saying, look, leadership, this is, these are the improvements we've made over the last year, and measure that and show that. I think it just does the whole agile community really a lot of good in terms of, yes, we are a valuable part of the company and we are adding to, the commercial success overall. So I know we've brought in this director, it's happening, it's growing, and hopefully we'll be shooting off into different brands and helping them out too. Cool. All right. Go for it.
There's capturing loads of metrics about the work. Do you capture anything about how the teams are feeling? Yeah. So we do I think it's called a happiness index, and that's a survey that goes out every quarter basically, and essentially asks, how do you feel like you have purpose in your work? Do you feel like you can be innovative? Have you got time to learn? So those kind of questions that are really, really important. And we see the trend as well, sort of going up. And again, that sort of anecdotal conversation I had around the team feeling more focused and things like that, we tend to see that. And that's the thing that I think that's more important, to be honest, than some of the other metrics that I guess we've talked about there. So we do that quarterly. I think, it's really important to do that stuff. Sure.
I missed exactly what you said, but it was on the slide. I think it was about what you did. There was a few things under the heading of, I think, efficiency, and I thought you said you don't normally like that. You don't normally focus on efficiency.
I did.
So what's the deal there?
Yeah, so I prefer the word effectiveness. Yeah. So efficiency, I feel like it's like cogs in a machine, isn't it? How much can we squeeze out of people? That's the vibe I get from efficiency. I prefer the word effectiveness. So how effective are my teams, not how efficient are we? You can have a really efficient team that's getting out tons of work and working super hard, they've been squeezed to death, but are they effective? So is the product actually delighting our customers? Are they feeling good? All that good stuff, which I associate more with effectiveness. So it's a language thing for me. And I think it's important as an Agile coach as well, that people, resources, Steve. Shout out to Steve, who was my first Agile coach actually back in the Yorkshire Water Day, and told me off constantly for saying resources instead of people. And it's absolutely true, isn't it? We're resources, are we?
Just call them meat bags.
Yeah, exactly. Meat bags, that's the one you said. Yeah, yeah. So, so probably the reason I've gone into Agile coaching, Steve, back in the day. Yeah, it's all your fault. It's all your fault. So yeah, so it's a language thing, and I think it's really important, and that's how I see those differences.
I do have a slightly controversial question. So
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
I saw a trend in the last few months when a lot of Scrum Master has been laid down. And talking with my mentor, he say sometimes it's because the Scrum Master think he don't need to do the Scrum. So he is not acting as a member of the team, but just try to do the Scrum Master role. And you have an experience in your company where there was a Scrum Master title, but was someone that was acting as that. So I'm very new in Agile, so I don't wanna open like a debate about the role of Scrum Master. I know it's there because the Scrum Guidance suggests that it's a fundamental part of the team. But what is your experience?
Yeah, I think it's a trend. I think it's a trend. So what I would say is this is tribe specific. So in other tribes we do have Scrum Masters at team level. This was a shock for me. But it's how the heads of delivery want to do it in that tribe. But yeah, I think it is a trend, and I think it's a sad trend. I think it boils down to education and leadership probably not really understanding what Agile is and how important it is to have someone like a Scrum Master within your teams. So yeah, I think it depends who you've got in leadership, to be honest, and how much they value that role, and how much empowerment we give that role. I spoke a little bit about organisations creating this hierarchy. So for example, PokerStars, there is this kind of Scrum Master at team level, Agile Coach at org level, but actually a well-educated leader would understand you could just have one of those, someone really experienced in that role doing all this good stuff and adding so much value. You don't really need that hierarchy. So yeah, I think it is a bit of a trend. I don't think a lot of Scrum Masters get the value and pay they deserve, if I'm honest. A really good Scrum Master is super valuable, but I think it's education at leadership level probably. Yeah.
I think you might have mentioned it, I can't sorry, but kind of on the Agile scale of when you're working for,
Yeah.
say a client that think they're Agile, but literally waterfall operating in sprints. So like coaching the kind of stakeholders in kind of the value of Agile delivery, but when they're working maybe with budgets and timelines, like how to kind of maximise that. Don't know if you've got any tips.
Good old Agile, yeah, or Agile theatre, isn't it? I think we were talking about, weren't we? Yeah, you do. You see it everywhere, and I think metrics can really help with this because ultimately, if you are still working in a waterfall way with Agile theatre, so just the titles and we're doing Scrum, we're doing Agile, look, we're doing daily Scrums, you're not going to see the metrics move. You're still going to probably be delivering in quarters or whatever it might be, and I think transparency is really key. So get the metrics in front of leadership and have those conversations around, look, we've been doing Agile now for a year, but actually nothing's moving. It's just the names that have changed. What can we do, as an organisation, as a team, to shift some of these metrics and those conversations? And it's going to be small, like incremental things that you can do as an Agile coach, but you can start to implement some of that stuff, experiment, and then go back and look at evidence and that kind of thing. So I don't know if you've got any specific examples or...
Well, it's more, for example, like you work in the public sector, budgets from like April to March, and they have to see what projects are kind of going to move into April and kind of what they're going to bid for the next year, and it's kind of then your basic project manager with like the team, story pointing. Like it's kind of a very, trying to sell almost the benefits of maybe kind of like more program view of what you can deliver over a bigger period or something like that.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? And it sounds like probably Agile is maybe just being done in tech there, and it has to be at this wider organisational level. So we have to talk to, like you say, finance, HR, and get them to obviously understand, product rather than project, and how we can look at smaller buckets of cash, and it can work. And I forget the name of the guy. I'll have a think and get you on LinkedIn, but there is someone who talks a lot about like Agile budgeting and how it can work actually with the waterfall sort of government and regulated organisations and some of the kind of tricks you can work with leadership on. But yeah, ultimately it's going out of just tech and talking to the other functions as well, and getting them on board. And it's definitely not overnight stuff either. But yeah. Cool. Sure.
So kind of following on from that, beyond the metrics, what would you see as the kind of additional value add from in terms of the outcome?
Yeah, so I guess it's so in terms of the outcomes, there's obviously the team, the feel of the team and the sustainability and the productivity there. I think it's that ability to get feedback quicker as well. So like you're getting things out to a customer now within a couple of weeks rather than sort of the 6 months that I just showed you on the last slide. So we're getting that feedback quicker, we're getting things into the market quicker, and then we're able to kind of say, yeah, great, this is working, let's keep doing more, or actually no, let's stop and move on to a different product or a different feature. So I think for me, that's, I mean, at PokerStars and Flutter, that's something that is driving, you know, what I guess Agile for us. That's something we want to do. We want to get stuff out quicker, we want to get feedback, and we want to be able to pivot, especially around things like compliance and regulations, which are massive for us. We've got to change super quick. So yeah, for us, that is an outcome we wanted, and that's, I guess, some of the outcomes that we are seeing. I guess every organisation would have or could have a different outcome. But for us, yeah, that's definitely something that is benefiting us other than, I guess, just the metrics. It's being able to quickly kind of say, yeah, no, what's next sort of thing.
Just to add on, and I don't work there, but what I saw from that was you've got
empirical evidence for the conversations you're having, such that
it's not a feeling, it's not stakeholders don't act like a spoiled child when you say no to them.
Yeah.
It's here is the evidence, help me change to either hit your target or to change the future that you're after.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult for people to argue when you've got, and here's a cycle time, and this is our system,
and this is this,
and this is this. So you've got, what most people don't have is that depth of
data. You've got that, so it's just like, yeah, just you can't do anything else, it's that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's that and that transparency, and just thinking of some of the conversations we are, you know, talking about regulatory requirements and urgent stuff coming in. We can have those conversations now about what do you want us to take out, how is it going to affect your cycle time.
Don't feel disappointed.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Wait till a month before and go, told you.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's two sides to it. So there's the metrics and having that there, and then there's a coaching, the softer side with the teams and the acting Scrum Masters, empowering them to the product owner as well. You can say no. Here's your metrics. Now you can say no. Or like I say, not yet. So yeah, definitely, Steve. Yeah.
Well, and I'd say you can also see in the data return on investment around other things you might have, other investments you might have made in the system around, I don't know, like CI/CD automation, test automation, or mobile system stuff. You ought to see that in reduced lead time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And probably just key to point out as well, so this tribe, yeah, we have acting Scrum Masters. Obviously, as an Agile coach, I'd always advocate to have someone with Agile expertise in the team. And I think one risk with this model is, like, it's all looking really nice, great, but one risk I have called out to leadership is what happens when, for example, a QA leaves and moves on to be whatever, a senior QA or to a different organisation, is you're losing all that Scrum Master expertise, aren't you? So then you're hiring a new QA who doesn't have the Agile stuff. So there's a risk there, and that's a longer term risk that, you know, I could look at this data again in a year and no idea. So I've not worked like this before, so this is new for me. I would always have that Scrum Master, acting Scrum Master in the team. And if I was head of, I'd certainly be implementing those roles because I know how valuable they are. So I just wanted to, I guess, mention that and just let you know where I stand on this. But that's the cards I were dealt, and yeah. Sure.
Do you ever think there's a risk in Agile of pivoting too many times and masking it with being Agile rather than like trying to do like a retro on like, you know, user retros, like where we kind of might have fallen down, or where areas to be improved are?
Yeah, definitely. And it's sometimes using an excuse, isn't it? The whole Agile thing and pivoting. There's always a cost with pivoting. So you know, context switching, you're going to be less productive. And we do see it. You know, like I've said before, we have lots of regulatory stuff coming in, and directors say, we need to do this now, we're going to lose this license, we need to do this now. So yeah, it is definitely a risk. And I think, again, it's educating leadership. So it's showing them we have what we call disruption metrics as well, which I didn't actually go into on here, but sprint disruption. So we want that to be less than 20%. If it starts to creep up, 40%, 50%, which is where these guys were at, it's those conversations higher up the stream, like, you know, the project managers that we have there, you know, why are you injecting these things into sprint? This is the effect it's going to have on focus and context switching. This is the cost it's going to cost you. This is waste in the system. Again, use the metrics, have the conversations, talk to leadership and change those behaviours so that they understand that impact, and we can start saying, no, we're not going to pivot that much. We're agile. You know, if something really important comes in, we can do it. But we're not going to pivot every sprint, because look how much it's costing us to do that. So it's getting that balance, and yeah, I completely agree that can happen and it is a risk, so it should be managed.
Good. We're out.
Thank you, everyone.